It all started the day I moved into the old Victorian house on the edge of town. The place was cheap, almost suspiciously so, but I couldn't resist the charm of its creaky floors and vintage details. I should have known that anything that seemed too good to be true usually was. The first night, I heard it. Faint, almost imperceptible whispers coming from the basement. At first, I thought it was just the wind slipping through the cracks of the old house, but it sounded purposeful. Curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed a flashlight and descended the narrow staircase. The air grew colder with every step, and the whispers stopped as soon as I reached the bottom. The silence was deafening. I looked around, shining the light on old, dusty shelves and rusted tools. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt heavy, like something was watching me. I told myself it was just my imagination. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the whispers, how they stopped so abruptly, like they knew I was coming. Around 3 a.m., I heard it again, louder this time. The sound seemed to echo up the staircase, but when I opened the door to the basement, it went silent again. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for anything. My flashlight flickered. I slammed the door and locked it, trying to shake the growing unease. The whispers weren't random. They were deliberate, almost like they were talking to each other. The next day, I tried to ignore it. I went about unpacking and settling in, but the basement door seemed to call to me. Every time I passed it, I felt a pull, like something wanted me to open it. That evening, I decided to set up my phone to record the basement overnight. If there was something down there, I wanted proof. I left the phone on a shelf and shut the door. The footage was chilling. Around 2 a.m., the whispers started again, but this time, they were clearer. It sounded like a language, one I didn't understand, and then, the camera moved. At first, I thought the phone had slipped, but the movement was deliberate, like someone had picked it up and turned it toward the stairs. There was no one there. I showed the video to a friend, hoping for a rational explanation. He laughed nervously and said it was probably just a draft or a rat knocking the phone over, but I could see the fear in his eyes. That night, I barricaded the basement door with a chair. I told myself it was just to make me feel better, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more urgent. It sounded like they were right on the other side of the door, but when I pressed my ear against it, I heard nothing. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house making me jump. At 4 a.m., I heard a soft knock on the basement door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. My heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. I grabbed a kitchen knife and crept toward the door, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The knocking stopped. With trembling hands, I removed the chair and unlocked the door. It swung open with a low creak, revealing the dark staircase. The whispers had stopped, but the air felt charged, like a storm was about to break. I stepped onto the first stair, then the second. The basement felt different this time. The air was thicker, the darkness heavier. My flashlight flickered again. At the bottom of the stairs, I saw it. A small, wooden box sitting in the middle of the floor. It hadn't been there before. My name was carved into the lid. My hands shook as I picked it up. The wood was ice cold, and the carvings were fresh, the edges sharp. Inside, I found a folded piece of paper. The paper was blank, but it felt wrong somehow. The texture was off, almost like skin. And then I noticed the faint, red stain on the corner. A loud bang upstairs made me drop the box. I sprinted back up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. The house was silent again, but I could feel something waiting. I decided to leave. I couldn't stay another night in that house. As I packed my bags, I heard the basement door creak open on its own. Frozen with fear, I turned to see the door swinging slowly. My phone buzzed, a notification popping up, new video saved. I hadn't touched it. The video was from the basement camera. It showed me picking up the box, but in the corner of the frame, there was a shadow tall, thin, and moving toward me. My friend called, saying he'd been having nightmares since seeing the video. He begged me to delete it, but I couldn't. I needed answers. I tried to research the house's history, but there was nothing. No records, no previous owners. It was like the house didn't exist before I moved in. That night, I woke up to find the wooden box on my bedside table. I know I left it in the basement. The paper inside now had writing on it. Leave. I grabbed the box and threw it outside. But when I came back to my room, it was there again. The paper now said, "Too late." The whispers started again, louder than ever. They were coming from all around me, not just the basement. I couldn't escape them. My phone buzzed with a new video notification. This one showed me sleeping, but the camera wasn't in my room. It was in the basement, watching the ceiling, watching me. I tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. The lights in the house flickered, and the whispers turned into low, guttural growls. Something was coming. I ran to the front door, but it wouldn't budge. The windows wouldn't break. I was trapped. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. Slowly, I turned around, the growls growing louder. A shadow moved at the end of the hallway, stretching unnaturally long, its form impossible to make out. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a live feed. The shadow was closer now, its form clearer. It wasn't human. I stared at the basement door, its frame trembling as if something behind it was pushing, testing my resolve. My breath caught when a faint whisper slithered through the crack, calling my name. With every ounce of courage, I grabbed the doorknob, but it was ice cold, sending shivers through my hand. The whispering stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. As I opened the door, the creaking sound echoed like a scream through the house. A gust of cold air greeted me, carrying the scent of damp earth and something metallic. The flashlight beam shook in my trembling hand, illuminating the narrow wooden stairs leading into darkness. Each step down felt like stepping deeper into a grave. The whispering returned, louder now, a cacophony of voices overlapping and weaving into unintelligible phrases. I felt like they were speaking directly into my skull. At the bottom of the stairs, the air felt thicker, almost suffocating. Shadows danced on the walls, but there was no source of light to create them. I swung the flashlight around, and the beam caught a tattered old chest in the corner. It looked like it had been there for centuries, untouched by time. A low hum emanated from the chest, vibrating through the floor and into my feet. The voices grew frantic, as if warning me to stay away. I knelt before the chest, my hands hesitant as they hovered over the rusted latch. A sudden loud thud came from above, as if someone had slammed the door shut. Panic surged through me, but curiosity outweighed my fear. I pried the latch open, the metal screaming in protest, and lifted the lid. Inside was a single object, an old, cracked mirror, its surface cloudy and distorted. My reflection stared back at me, but something was off. The figure in the mirror moved, even though I was perfectly still. It raised a hand, pointing at something behind me. I whipped around, but there was nothing there, just the oppressive darkness. When I turned back, the mirror was empty, my reflection gone. A sudden rush of wind knocked the mirror from my hands, shattering it on the ground. The voices turned into screams, loud and deafening. The shards of the mirror glowed faintly, each piece reflecting something different. Faces, places, and horrific scenes of pain and torment. My heart raced as the largest shard showed a door, one I didn't recognize. It was black, with strange symbols carved into it. A whisper cut through the chaos. "Find the door. It's the only way." My mind reeled as the scene shifted, showing that same door in my own house. Scrambling up the stairs, I flung the basement door open and ran to the hallway. There it was, a black door that hadn't been there before. The symbols on it seemed to writhe and twist, glowing faintly in the dim light. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. As soon as I touched it, the house seemed to breathe, the walls pulsing as if alive. The door creaked open on its own. Beyond was a void, an endless expanse of black with a faint red glow in the distance. A voice called from within, familiar and yet alien. "You've come this far," it said, "but will you step through?" My legs felt like lead, but something pulled me forward. Crossing the threshold, I was engulfed in darkness, the air thick and heavy. The door slammed shut behind me, leaving me in silence. The red glow grew closer, revealing a massive structure, a throne made of bones and shadow. Sitting on it was a figure cloaked in darkness. Its face was obscured, but its eyes burned like fire, locking onto me with an intensity that made my knees buckle. "You shouldn't have come," it said, its voice a mix of a growl and a whisper. "But now that you're here, there's no going back." The ground beneath me shifted, and I realized I was standing on a mosaic of faces, each frozen in an expression of terror. The figure stood, towering over me, and the shadows seemed to ripple and writhe around it. "Do you know what you've unleashed?" it asked. I couldn't speak, my throat dry and my mind racing. The glow from its eyes intensified, illuminating the faces on the floor. One of the faces was mine. My blood ran cold as I stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the mosaic. "You're part of this now," the figure said, stepping closer. "Every choice you made led you here." A sudden pain shot through my chest, and I looked down to see a black tendril wrapping around me, pulling me toward the throne. "What do you want from me?" I finally managed to scream, my voice echoing in the void. The figure tilted its head, as if amused. "Everything," it said simply. The tendrils tightened, and the world around me began to fade. Just as darkness consumed me, a faint voice whispered in my ear, "Wake up." My eyes snapped open, and I was back in the basement. The chest was gone, the shards of the mirror nowhere to be seen. But the black door was still there, slightly ajar. A choice lay before me: close the door and try to forget, or step through and face whatever lay beyond. My hand hovered over the handle. The story doesn't end here. What would you do? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more tales like this, don't forget to subscribe and explore the playlist for more chilling stories.